In this module, I'm going to be introducing you to the basics of what Hurst cycles are all about. Although you don't need to know this information in order to work with the sentient FLD indicator, I do believe that the more you understand the cycles that you are trading with the sentient FLD indicator, the more likely you are to make successful and profitable trades. So in this first video, we're going to just cover some of the real basics. If you're familiar with this, then by all means skip ahead to the next module in which we're going to be discussing trading with the indicator. But if you are new to Hurst cycles, it would be remiss of me not to include this material in the tutorial course. So let's get started. What on earth are Hurst cycles? Hurst cycles are called Hurst cycles because they were discovered by a man called J.M. Hurst. That's him at the top left there. He was an aeronautical engineer. He worked at Bell Laboratories, I believe I'm correct in saying, and he worked with those powerful mainframe computers that were around in the 1960s, those really big computers that filled entire rooms of a building, and he set about studying the price movements of financial markets. He wanted to know what the science was, or the maths was, behind the price movements. The result of his studies was that he found cycles. He found that price movements of financial markets are influenced by cycles. Now, it is in the detail of what he discovered that the true value of the approach lies, because he didn't just discover the fact that there were cycles influencing markets. He defined specific principles that explain how those cycles influence price movements, and that is what we need to understand in order to trade them successfully. Let's start off by discussing what a cycle is. I've already mentioned this in an earlier video when we were discussing the FLD, but I'm going to quickly go through it again because it is important that you understand the basics of this information. A cycle is effectively something which influences price to increase and decrease in a regular manner. We have our time axis running along the bottom of the chart, and the price axis is of course the y-axis, or running vertically. We measure the wavelength by measuring any 2 points that are in the same phase in the cycle, and we measure our amplitude by the amount of upward movement. That cycle doesn't look very much like a cycle that you see in financial markets, as of course we've already mentioned, but when you combine the multiple cycles that influence financial markets and don't consider only one cycle in the market, then the combination of those different cycles begin to match the price movement a little more accurately. That brings us to the first principle that Hurst defined, the principle of cyclicality. He discovered that price movements consist of a combination of specific waves, and they therefore exhibit specific cyclic characteristics. What that means to us is that price is moved by multiple cycles, and because cycles repeat with regularity, that is the definition of a cycle, we can gain insight into the timing of market turns. That is why Hurst cycles are so powerful when it comes to trading financial markets. In the next video, in this module, we're going to explore some of the other principles that Hurst defined that distinguish his approach to other cycle approaches and provide us with the power of the FLD indicator.